This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the first ever edition of Check the Report, Jim Caldwell style, with yours truly, Vito Jerome Churko on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We will do this podcast every so often and check the darn report. Jim Caldwell, how's the family doing? Check the report. Right, Doc? And Jim Caldwell, how is bingo going with Martha Ford?
Check
Doc?
the report. Now,
Absolutely.
That's how this podcast was born, in that Jim Caldwell loves to tell the media when they ask him about injuries with the lines, check the report. And Vito does a bunch of interviews. I mean, literally every week he's texting me, I got this guy lined up, I got that person lined up, this person wants to talk to the podcast. I said, my goodness, we're running out of spots for you to air all this stuff. And I said, you know what? I really want to do a podcast that's called Check the Report. So I wanted to kind of, indicate that the podcast will be the podcast where you have a bunch of guests on. We banter back and forth. A little bit shorter than our average podcast, maybe around 30 minutes or so. A lot of guests, a lot of entertaining stuff. But you know what? I just wanted to banter with you a little bit more than the hour and a half that we have been. So, when we got a chance to go to Callahan Hall, I had a really good time. I listened back to our post-game report, and it sounded pretty decent. We didn't sound like we didn't know what we were talking about. And so as we improve upon our mic skills, as we improve upon, doing better videos and having more fun with this, why not do a bunch more podcasts? I mean, seriously, you're going to do most of the work anyway. You're going to secure all the interviews, and then, like DJ Khaled says, you're going to secure the bag, because it's on you to get the sponsors. Because if you don't, boop, you get cut. Just like anything else. If the show quality is not as good as I want, if the interviews are not going as well as I would like, I'm sorry, we got to cut it out of the rotation.
And, regarding my mic skills and my video stand-up reporting skills, check the darn report. I'm not going to talk about those two things, but you know what? Always a room for improvement, and we're going to have a lot of fun through Check the Report and whenever we do this podcast, and we'll interview numerous individuals and hopefully have new people each and every single episode of this podcast as well, Doc.
So for this debut edition, who you got?
Brandon Justice of his own website now, the Wolverine Lounge. And the Wolverine Lounge is his first site since, being off and away from writing for a while.
It seems like you got a strong interest in talking about some college football now ahead of the bowl season.
It's a college football branded segment of Check the Report, to say the least, Doc.
Okay, good. Now, let me kind of ask Brandon a couple questions regarding his departure from his previous place and see how he answers it, okay? Let's see if he'll make some news, all right?
Okay. We'll make some news by dialing up Brandon Justice of the Wolverine Lounge. And now with me on the debut edition of Check the Report is Brandon Justice of the Wolverine Lounge. Brandon, glad to have you back in the fray here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. How have you been?
I'm doing good, man. A lot of moving parts right now in life, so kind of just trying to take things as slowly but as efficiently as possible. So a lot of fun, but I've been good, man. How everybody over there been?
Doing really well, and Doc is always doing well. We know that much.
Yeah, he takes care of himself. He's the Doc.
Yeah, that's right, Brandon. I'm really proud of you, because I've been following you now, obviously, for the better part now of the past 2 years, and I respect the work that you do with Michigan recruiting. I originally found you at Land of 10, and so are you free? Are you at liberty to kind of tell us, now that the contract is expired and your no-compete clause is over, are you at liberty to kind of discuss how you kind of ended there and now starting up your own website?
Yeah, I can. I'm free to talk about all of it now, which is kind of crazy because it was such a long process, but it's over, and I'm extremely thankful that it's over. But yeah, I'm at liberty to talk about it, and I'm cool with talking about it. It doesn't really matter to me.
Now, I've seen your Twitter. It feels like you've been on the edge of just wanting to say something about Land of 10. I see your supporters saying it's a failing media entity. You're starting your own thing. Obviously, when you had departed there, it wasn't basically something that you were really thrilled with, but you tried to move on, but they slapped a no-compete clause on you prior to your departure, but they really kind of put you through the ringer trying to enforce it. What was that like?
Oh, it was crazy, man. I'm sure, I don't know if all of your listeners know the story or anything like that, or I know you guys do, and a majority of people that know me do, but so when it happened, I had known for a while that and you probably remember this through me recording at the studio and everything, but I had known for a while that was kind of inevitable, as referencing my termination and whatnot. So I kind of knew that was inevitable. But when it happened, it was an unexpected time. I had gone like 2 or 3 weeks without hearing from management, and towards the end of my tenure at Atlanta 10, it was a phone call and an email twice a day for management to basically. I was kind of like, it was almost like daycare. Like I was getting tracked down. Meanwhile, I was the only one really breaking news and grabbing news and getting views for us. So it felt unorthodox because, I was the most relevant within the fan base, and I was getting, not to sound petty, that's just the facts of it, was I was doing the most for the team as far as the Michigan page goes. I mean, they had every team covered, but speaking specifically to the Michigan page, I was pretty much the only one, grabbing people in, and it's unfortunate that it happened like that. But yeah, it was like a 3-week hiatus of not hearing from them. So in my opinion, I was like, okay, maybe things are going well. I just broken news on a Michigan quarterback target that, pretty much told his entire story to me on why he wasn't going to Michigan and how he had flipped suddenly because he was such a Michigan lock. It's Tyler Shuck, I think his name was. Yeah, Tyler Shuck. So I thought, hey, I was doing well. They had brought in a new editor who really liked me, and he was helping out and everything. And then suddenly I got the text and at 1:30, and it was like, hey, you're getting a phone call at 2, just be ready. And I was like, okay, like it was just like a normal thing. And then I got a phone call, and the number came up as the HR from Cox, and it was like a 15-second call. It was, hey, hate to say it, but we're gonna have to let you go. And I was like, okay. Like, do you have any questions? I'm like, what questions can I really ask? And they were like, okay, and that was it.
Did they explain to you then during that phone call why they let you go?
Well, what happened was this had been going on since, I don't even know. Let's say I got hired there in August, and this started in October. So it didn't really take long for things to kind of start getting bad. So this had been going on for a long time. So they pretty much put themselves under the assumption that I knew, which they were right. I knew why they were doing it. I knew why they had these problems. It stemmed from multiple things. Other coworkers. One coworker didn't really like me. It had it out for me from the beginning, and one behind the scenes worker who was higher up than me didn't like me either, and had it out for me from the beginning as well. And then I got suspended for the tweet back in October when I tweeted something about Michigan's train formation, and it was, dumb tweet, but do I agree with the suspension saying it now? No, I didn't. When I was with them, I would have said yeah, but no, I didn't. So, it was bad from the start there. But the all-seeing, the all-being power, the guy who was highest up liked me from the start and defended me for a long time. So he was the one who ultimately said the words, you're fired. And it was unfortunate that he was the one, because I think he was one of the guys he was the one who hired me, and he was the one who always defended me when it came to the meetings that we had literally every single day. So he ended up being the one that fired me, and then he ended up blocking me on Twitter. So it was a weird situation. I don't think I'll ever talk to him again, which is extremely odd to me. But yeah, so I knew why it was happening. I thought it was over, though. I thought that they had moved on. I thought that we were ready to kind of like jump that hump and get over that kind of stuff, because I thought that everything that we had issues with, which stemmed from relationships with other coworkers to getting the things that they didn't like about what I was not getting in on time, didn't pertain to my stories or my news or what I was writing or anything. It was things like I had to make my schedule, I should say, like 2 weeks ahead of time. And in the world of Michigan football and Jim Harbaugh, what can you really schedule out 2 weeks ahead of time, right? I'm worried about the now. I'm worried about getting the stories for now. And I'm fine with scheduling things out days ahead or one story that's going to be a long story a couple of weeks ahead, sure. Making work trips, sure. But they took me off the road. They told me I couldn't travel anymore. They had me planning things out 10 times more than anybody else because I asked everyone else. So, this wasn't just something that made me mad. I think this made others within the company almost more mad than I was. That might be a stretch. That might be a stretch, or maybe an exaggeration. But there were people that went to bat for me multiple times, and it ended up not really doing a whole lot, obviously. But there were people under that window, and as you can tell now, I think 8 writers have left under their own power since I left, or since I was forced out. There's been like 8 people who have left. Does that have anything to do with me? No, not at all. That was things that based on their own situation. But a lot of them left because they were unhappy. So one thing led to another, and that's what happened at Atlanta 10. And I'm forever grateful for the guy who took a shot at me 10 months before, or 11 months before I was fired. And I was 19 when I was hired there. I was on salary at Rivals before, but They gave me my own personal beat. I did things on my own there. I was very independent there for the most part until everything kind of turned into like a daycare, like 3 months in. And I had that daycare setting for 8 more months, which was awful. But, still looking back on it, hey, I was 19. Someone took a shot at me and gave me a salary to cover what I dreamed of covering since I was a kid. And I can't sit here and say I regret taking that job. I regret moving to Ann Arbor because it was so damn expensive. But outside of that, like I don't really have any regrets about that entire situation. I stayed there 11 months and broke some news and did a commitment video that was professionally done, directed a short film in essence with that. I mean, that was in and of itself like a short film, and I directed all of that. So it was fun. I had a lot of fun there despite all of the BS that I was put through. I met some great people like Luke Stradolski, who covers Michigan State, and as you guys might see, Jeremy Birmingham, who's now at The Athletic, who covered Ohio State recruiting for them, and Ben Axelrod, who's now a productive assistant he basically runs digital at Cleveland's top news station. So, there's a lot of great people there that I'm really thankful that I met, and I learned a lot there too. Outside of all the BS, there was a lot of good, but looking back on it, so.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I like about you and what drew me to you is that you're just a hustler. You're a guy that's working hard, trying to cultivate sources, putting out information, giving your spin on things, building an audience, and obviously doing this podcast. That was along the line of what we were doing. Now, what is your goal with the Wolverine Lounge? It seems like you're putting in a lot of effort, already breaking news, already coming in strong right away. You're making your presence known in the Michigan community.
Yes, thank you so much for those compliments. I mean, this was something that I thought of. It was kind of brought up to me by LG Hale, who you guys might know from Twitter. And he didn't even, when he told me about it, he didn't even think of what he was doing. He was just like, maybe you should do your own site. That was pretty much all he said. And as soon as he said that, I was like, well, maybe I should, like I didn't even really understand that idea that he put in my head. It's so simple to make your own site, right? You don't really, that's not something that's, making your own site isn't like, groundbreaking. People do it all the time, but it was something that I hadn't thought of. When I got that non-compete and had to wait 6 months, there was not a lot of options for me because I don't have a degree. I'm not finishing up school until it's still going to be like a year and a half, if not more, for me to even get my degree. So places outside of here where I've built a reputation, they're not going to hire someone who doesn't have a degree. That's just the bare facts of it. And it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is. So my options were limited. And then when 24/7 Steve Lorenz tries hiring me for free, right? Because at that point in time, I was just looking for something to do that could prepare me for another job. He was trying to help me out within the network, try and give me a job elsewhere within 24/7 or Scout that might not be covering Michigan, which I was all for. And I broke a commitment there. Right. And then the next day I get a cease and desist that I can't cover Michigan anymore, even if it's for free. So mind you, I was going to be making $0 covering this, and I still wasn't allowed to do it. CBS got a cease and desist too. And I got a call from CBS's corporate, who, mind you, never hired me. This was just like, I'm helping them out. But they got a cease and desist from Cox Media, who runs Lane to 10. And they call me up and they're like, hey, look, we wish it would be different, but there's nothing we can do. So it was tough for me to think of something to do. And when LG brought that idea up, it was like a light bulb in my head, something so simple, but so abstract. So as far as my goals with the site, there's a lot of things I want to do. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things happening that I didn't expect to happen this fast. First off, huge shout out to Hugh Freeze for completely imploding Ole Miss, because that has done business wonders. Because now with Shea Patterson and Van Jefferson and Deontay Anderson and all these kids from Ole Miss trying to transfer to Michigan and interested in transferring to Michigan, we've done wonders. And I was lucky enough to have a source that just so happened to be really close to the situation on both sides. And there's been multiple, I think 3 or 4 people that I really trust that have been really good sources for me. And I mean, again, not trying to toot my own horn, just saying like we were first on the visits, all 3 of them visiting. We were first on that by 18 hours, I think, until the confirmation came out. And then we were first on the Harbaugh visiting Oxford. We were first on that by a couple of hours. And that was in today's world.
Yeah,
that was impressive in my opinion.
Yeah,
so.
Brandon, yeah, here's the only compliment that this is the last compliment I'm going to give you, because you're a Michigan guy and I can't give too many. But all I can say is prior to knowing you and knowing your work, I could have gave a damn about recruiting. but based upon your work, based upon the sheer amount of tweets that you sent out, you got a guy like me who sits in an office to actually click on and learn about recruiting news. So good for you. Keep it up. I'm fascinated to hear what your take is on some college football. We wish you luck, obviously, and we're obviously going to talk to you a lot more in the future.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's an intriguing subject that not a lot of people were into a few years ago, and now it's something saturated in the best way possible. So
that's all Michigan fans have is who's coming in next. That's all they got because on the field doesn't look too good.
And you know what, Brandon, speaking of the negativity, you look at all these fans, and there's so many of them right now that are already jumping off the cliff, are speaking of the demise of Jim Harbaugh after 3 regular seasons on the job as head man at U of M. And for me, it's premature. I have a realistic mentality or mindset looking forward to next season specifically and saying to myself, well, it's not over yet. He's not going anywhere. He's a guy that will stay at U of M, in my opinion, as long as he desires. And obviously, it looks like the athletic department loves him right now. He's really his own AD, his own boss at U of M as well. So I've got to ask you, what would you like to say to all of those fans that have been speaking so darn negatively already of Harbaugh through 3 regular seasons on the job at Michigan?
Yeah, you got to look at the bigger picture because, say, the typical jump for a coach is supposed to be year 3, sure. But it was a very unique situation that Jim Harbaugh inherited at Michigan. He inherited a team that was absolutely loaded with seniors in his second year. So for him, the most successful year on paper through his first 3 years should have been year 2. And spoiler alert, it was, right? Year 2 was the big one where he was 5 points away from undefeated, and he was, an inch away with JT Barrett's first down, from a playoff and a Big Ten championship game, at least a chance at the playoff, right? So, take that into account. Sure. Is he having trouble with big games? Absolutely, he's having trouble with big games. But there's a lot of things that go into those big games. It's the fumble punt. He can't go out there and catch the damn punt, right? That's something that he can't control. With JT Barrett, he gave Wilton Speight the amount of right play calls to win that game, and he couldn't execute. Of course, Speight was out there with a broken collarbone, so take that into account too. He's playing with a quarterback that didn't have an arm practically. And then this year, come on. I have not seen a better game plan from a Jim Harbaugh Michigan team than the one that he came out with against Ohio State this year. He had a team that was battered. Lost its quarterback. They were basically on a third string quarterback because John O'Korn, great guy, but far worse than Brandon Peters and Wilton Speight, who are both hurt. And he had an offensive line that, for whatever reason, is just not getting it in pass protection. So, he put a guy out there in John O'Korn and gave him a chance to win. 2.5 minutes left in the game. They're down 4 points. They got to drive down the field. He calls a play that's unexpected in the past because everyone expected the run because they've been successful in the run. So everyone says, why not run the ball? Well, he threw Ohio State's defense off. He had 2 wide open guys in Donovan Peoples-Jones and Zach Gentry, and he overthrows him by, like 20 or 30 yards. So Jim Harbaugh's game plans are out there, and he's doing nearly everything he can besides going out there and throwing the ball himself. He just needs his guy there, and I think he's going to get him soon if Shea Patterson comes, and I think he already has one in Brandon Peters and Dylan McCaffrey waiting to happen. He's got the game plan. He's got what it takes to win. There is no other guy who's going to come into Michigan and do this and do anything beyond what Jim Harbaugh has done. Sure, there's other guys out there that are as good, or Nick Saban's better and Urban Meyer's better. And there's probably a couple other guys you could argue is better, but I don't really think there's anyone that can come into Ann Arbor and outdo what Harbaugh has done. I think they can match it, but I don't think they can outdo it because he's dealing with a roster that was so sophomore loaded. Everyone predicted Michigan to go 8-4, 9-3 with all the starters they had lost coming into the season, and that's exactly what they did. They went 8-4, and they were close to going 9-3. And now everyone's calling for his head, even though they all projected him to the same exact thing. Michigan had a team that should have went, honestly, 5-7. 5-7, 6-6. You lose that many starters, you lose both your quarterbacks. You play 3 quarterbacks in a season. Pat Narduzzi just got a 7-year extension for going 5-7 with his 4th string quarterback. Right? Pitt's a way less, much lower expectations, sure, but I'm just saying similar. He had a similar situation. So Jim Harbaugh had a team with injuries and losing all of its starters from last season, and he still managed to go 8-4 and was just a few points away from going 10-2, 9-3, and beating some rivals. Does he need to win the big game? Absolutely agree with that. But what's happening in Ann Arbor is not as bad as what everyone makes it out to be. got a great chance to build a great team next year, and they have the roster to win a Big Ten title. Next year, if there's more struggles, if they lose 2 or 3 games next year, I'm with you. I'm with you arguing, fans. If the fans are arguing now, I'm with you next year. Right now, not yet.
Next year's put up or shut up for me when it comes to Harbaugh
absolutely.
at U of M. And for me, when I look at the tiers of head coaches, the top tier consists of Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, and then Dabo Swinney. The second tier, Jim Harbaugh might be at the very top of that second tier. So he might break into that first tier at some point as well, and it's always who's the alternative solution. So if you're not going to get one of those 3 guys ahead of him in the first tier of head coaches in college football right now, then why would you oust Jim Harbaugh? It's just not going to happen, and it wouldn't lead to more effective or productive results on the playing field. Now, like you said, he has to win the big game, but he also has to have a better O-line, a better quarterback. And speaking of the QB play, there is Mr. Shea Patterson that we have to talk about from Ole Miss, who supposedly is being strongly pursued by U of M, is interested in attending and playing at the University of Michigan as well. How likely do you think that is? Shea Patterson becoming a member of the University of Michigan. And right now, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Who do you believe is the starting quarterback for the Wolverines next season? And I do know that Shea, as of right now, would have to sit out next season with the current transfer rules.
Right. So here's the situation with Shea Patterson. And I think that at the Lounge, we've covered it as good as anybody else has. I think some people have been on the same path as us, but I think we've really been on the forefront of this coverage. So with Shea Patterson, from everything I've been told, like I said, we've got multiple people on the situation, expects to be immediately eligible. There is a way, there is something that's going to happen with Ole Miss. You see Deontay Anderson is claiming that Hugh Freeze lied to him and misled him in his recruitment to Ole Miss, saying that there weren't sanctions. The same things are going to happen with all these other players. And in the end, we expect the NCAA to rule that all players transferring out of Ole Miss, no matter their class, are going to be immediately eligible. So from what I've been told, both sides, Michigan, Ole Miss, and in between, there is a full expectation for Shea Patterson and them to be immediately eligible, which plays an enormous role in the 2018 season because you're dealing with 3 guys who might come to Michigan, and Anderson, the safety, Jefferson, the receiver, and Shea Patterson, the quarterback, that would all of a sudden all 3 contend in a huge way to start, especially Patterson, especially Anderson, honestly, all 3 of them. So in my opinion, yes, they are going to get Shea Patterson in the end. I see it not as a lock, but it's close, especially with Saturday coming up. As we reported, Anderson, the safety, is visiting Saturday and making his decision Sunday or Monday. That was told by somebody right in this camp that it's pretty much as good as it gets. So with him making his decision Sunday or Monday, having no other visits, you put the pieces together. Where's he expected to go? Am I right? So if he goes there, that's gotta boost the chances of Patterson. Take into account that Patterson's parents from Toledo already love Michigan, wanted him to go to Michigan originally, but obviously, one thing led to another. He ended up at Ole Miss. It's to my belief that Patterson wants to end up at either Michigan or UCLA, but there are some hurdles to get around for both schools that I think Michigan's going to get over, and UCLA isn't. Again, that's pretty much all I can say on the situation as far as that goes, but I think Michigan's going to jump those hurdles, and UCLA isn't, and that's what's going to lead him to Michigan. With the visit Saturday, I think the trio all being together, Harbaugh having already visited them, I mean, there's just too many factors right now that are in the favor of Michigan for anybody to say he's going to go anywhere else besides Ann Arbor. So yeah, I'm taking Shea Patterson to start next year. I think he's going to transfer as well, and I think that's going to lead to him starting because he gives you that next level talent. I mean, he was the number 1 quarterback out of high school, the number 3 or 4 overall recruit, and you saw what he did, threw for over 2,500 yards or 2,200 yards in 6.5 games this year, with a terrible Ole Miss defense that gave up over 40 points or over 35 points 6 times. The only time he really turned the ball over was during fourth quarter comebacks where his team was down 17 and he had no other choice but to throw the hell out of the ball. And against Auburn, a team that was in the SEC championship, inches from the playoff, threw for over 300 yards, 350 yards, I believe, threw for a 66.7% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Proof is in the pudding. The kid's good. And he's gonna have, the belief is he's one and done at Michigan. That is what the belief is. Again, now that's not a lock, obviously, injuries happen, but the belief is he comes in for 1 year, goes to the draft. He's already projected top 10 in the 2019 draft by a couple of different outlets. I think Draft Expert or whatever it's called, but the one that's I can't think of it right now, but you guys know what I'm saying. Regardless, he's highly regarded nationally by everyone. That's Draft Expert, and it's expected for him to come here 1 year head out and hopefully leave his mark if you're a Michigan fan. But that's my expectation.
Brandon Justice, delivering justice to all on the U of M football front with his knowledge on the University of Michigan football. And glad to have you back in the game, in the writing and recruiting game. And glad to be able to check out your work at the Wolverine Lounge. Best of luck to you, Brandon, and we'll talk to you again soon here. All right?
Thanks a lot for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day. Michigan is not dead. Harbaugh is not going anywhere anytime soon. Next year is put up or shut up for me, and Brandon Justice, our guest on this week's episode 2 of Check the Report, did say that much himself. And go check out his work, please, at the Wolverine Lounge. He is still breaking news over there at the Wolverine Lounge, his own site, and he created the site. And you know what? You can find a lot of great info about Michigan football and Michigan athletics at that site too, Doc.
No doubt about it. And if you keep working the microphone like you have been in the past, waving it all over the place like you did in our video at Detroit Podcast and how you were at Callahan Hall, you might be on the same receiving end of a phone call from the DOC. Haha.
Yeah, I would not like that to be the case. But I guess we'll shut down shop here. With that being said, Doc, John Charles Macron, thank you. And thanks also to Brandon Justice of the Wolverine Lounge for lending his insight and time on this week's episode, the first ever edition of Check the Report.
And from time to time, go to DetroitSportsPodcast.com, check the report, and check out all the other podcasts on this fine network. We greatly appreciate all your support, and thanks to Brandon Justice again.